I just had to do it. And when I did it, everything came to me, everything manifested, I stepped right into my power. And that was what it was, is that you have to fully be who it is that you came here to be. And if you don't, then it won't work.
Hello, you beautiful bluebirds, and welcome back to another episode of Deja Blu. This is the first one in a really long time that I have done a podcast online. However, unfortunately, as much as I wish with every single fiber of my being that I could be sitting next to this majestic queen, unfortunately, we'll have to do it through the interwaves until I actually am with her in the physical. This sister has woven her way into my life a long time ago, actually, like right back in my OG LA days when I got to be connected with this sister and her beautiful husband. And I got an opportunity to paint her wolf husky, a painting for your birthday live in your living room. And that was just the most random introduction into the friendship that has continued to be woven, even though that we are not like geographically even close. However, through us staying connected and reconnecting through a dear friend of ours, we just realized of like the resonance and the excitement and the joy for each other existing on the planet. And Shayoon is one of the founders of the Light Force Center, as well as a mother of two who is carving a completely new way of doing motherhood on this planet, in the sense of really from the smallest details to the largest details, bringing consciousness back into the way that we work with our children, from the birthing experience to the raising of them, to the nutrition, to the education, and from everything in between. I am endlessly inspired by this human of what she's bringing onto the planet, as well as her activism with child sex trafficking and the stories behind all of that, as well as just being an empowered woman in today's world. So it is truly, truly, truly an honor to introduce this majestic Madison woman, Shayoon, to Deja Blu podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Wow, what an intro. Do you want to be my manager?
Everyone says that. I think every podcast now, I'm like trying to outdo myself with my last intro. I'm like, how?
Damn, that was good.
I was just basically born to be a hype woman.
Yeah, I need you. That was amazing. Wow, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's been a long time coming, so I'm super excited that this is happening, and that you are 16 hours ahead in Bali right now. So you are holding it down for the future. You are. But before the podcast started, I asked you how's the future looking, and what was your response?
I said, it is bright. I can't even see. I need sunglasses. It's so bright out here, man. The future is just lit over here. You know?
All right, perfect. You're bringing hope for the rest of us that are 16 hours behind, but I can't wait to wake up tomorrow morning. Amazing. So I just want to introduce you first and foremost to the Deja Blu podcast and the platform of all of the bluebirds that don't know anything about you, and to introducing who you be onto this platform. You are weaving some really powerful, I mean, we had a call recently and I just sort of came off of the call feeling like I'm dreaming with my eyes open a little bit. Like you have this essence that, so also same with your partner Alexander, you both have this essence of daring to dream really, really big, and then creating a really big wake of allowing others to believe almost in the impossible, of like, oh, everything's possible now. Just I'm having a conversation with the two of you. So I'm curious, like, just to hear a little bit about your story from when you were living in LA and the whole city life, building businesses, to then finding a way in Bali and creating, I mean, we can talk about it a little bit more, but the vision of actually building heaven on earth. And I don't take that like sentence lightly, like actually.
You know why I love you is because you understand it and you see it and you know it because you've lived it. And, dreaming with my eyes open is my only option because I haven't slept in 4 years because I have children. So we have to dream with our eyes open because there's no sleeping here. And oh, I'm kidding. We we are so blessed and we're so lucky to be able to manifest our realities because of the way that we decided to live our life and the way that we decided to redirect our life, actually. And from being in LA, we both kind of grew up there. Alexander was born, my husband was born in Malibu, and then I was actually born in Nairobi, in Kenya. And I grew up in the middle of America after moving from Nairobi to Oklahoma, which was a really big mind fuck. And and it wasn't until I had a terrible, horrible car crash where my car was turned upside down and I was burning and I couldn't get out that I realized that I actually started to wake up. And after my car accident, when I was 18 years old in Oklahoma City, I was told that I wasn't going to be able to walk again properly, that I wasn't going to be able to birth children, that I wasn't going to be able to live a normal life because of the extremity of what had happened to my spine. And there was no way out other than $5,000 injections into my spine and rehab for the rest of my life. And I kind of fell into this trap of Western medicine where I was prescribed and subscribed to the system at a very young age, hopped up on every pill, every steroid, and had seen every physiotherapist in the, Southwest region of America, and not one person wanted to help me spiritually or holistically. And so I fell into a really deep depression. I fell into a really deep state of asleep. I was asleep. And so I was really over being surrounded by all of those people, and I knew that I was here for something greater, way greater, and there wasn't going to be an opportunity for me to realize that unless I left. So I packed all my bags by myself. I had really amazing supportive parents, which is a really important part of who I am today because of that. And I bounced and I went to LA on my own. And I say I grew up in LA because growing up to me is really from 18 onward. And I grew up in LA. I lived there for 12 beautiful years. And when I was in Los Angeles, I actually met the love of my life, Alexander, at Coachella 2010 when it was one weekend and, really dope. And at that time, he had created and invented a company called Spirit Hoods. And Spirit Hoods was at that time taking off huge. Everyone had it. For those of you who don't know, it's a faux fur animal hat with the paws inside. And it became an overnight sensation. And I actually went to LA to pursue fashion. And I was killing it in the fashion game. And during that time, Spirit Hoods was invited to Las Vegas for a massive trade show. And they were on the heads of like Bieber and, they were making hoods for Snoop Dogg. And Alexander was, designing all of what you're wearing now, like the jackets, that was all Alexander. And everything that he had created during that time took off literally like that. He went from zero to like a multi-million-dollar company in a few weeks. And so this trade show was massive, really important for him and for me to attend. And we were in the hotel room getting ready, and I had tears in my eyes. And I looked at him and I was like, I'm so sorry. Again, this happened multiple times in our relationship. I can't go. I'm in so much pain. I literally can't take another step. My back is killing me. My body's giving out. I cannot put on heels and a smile right now. I can't even take enough, Adderall or whatever I need to do to get my ass in gear for this. I'm sorry, I'm staying. And in that moment was the first time he actually looked at me like, I'm so over this. I'm not going to let another day go by where you're not going to, participate in life events. And I was like, okay, but still how am I going to get up and go right now? I really just don't feel like it. And he was like, we're going to try something new with you. We're going to try to heal you naturally. And in my head, I said, oh, wow, that's so cute. My sweet little boyfriend at the time, who for me and my culture was a really big step for me to take because I was always told that I needed to marry somebody Muslim. I was told that I needed to be a part, keep the culture going. And so I was already out on a limb dating a white boy that wears like animals on his head with no shirts and like looks very homeless most of the time. And I had no idea what he was talking about. And I made fun of him. And I was just like, yeah, okay, this cute little white boy's going to do something, holistic on me. And also, it's very much taboo in my culture and my religion, like healing and these types of arts, hardest arts, are considered taboo, witchcraft, whatever you want to call it. And so I kind of was nervous to accept his invitation. And then at that point, I'm like, fuck it. What do I have to lose? And he taught me something called emotional freedom technique, EFT. And at that time, I'd never tried that before. Blue, within 5 minutes, I was in downward dog, touching my toes, FaceTiming my parents, going, I can touch my toes, streaming tears because I took 5 minutes to forgive my body. That concept had never occurred to me in my life, that I had all this pent up tension for losing my pro athlete scholarships, for losing the rest of my teens, for losing my ability to freely dance. I was so mad at myself, so mad at my body, so mad at the diagnosis that I forgot who I really was. And so in that moment, when I forgave my body instantaneously recorrected itself in that moment. And I had zero pain. And we're talking about every kind of pill that you can think of was prescribed to me, because even in some moments, those really high doses did not work. And so I'm talking about not being able to walk properly. My hip was out of place. I'm talking about $5,000 injections up the spine all the time just to get a little bit of relief. Gone. 5 minutes. That's all it took. And that moment is when I became obsessed with the power of our mind and our bodies and what we can actually do ourselves. And so right around the time you met me was I quit everything and I went onto this huge knowledge-seeking journey, getting certified in everything possible so that I could help other people understand that whatever it is that they have, any pain, any emotional suffering can dissipate within a very short amount of time. And so LA to me became very like an old place where I could no longer exist as I was receiving, because I opened myself up to receive these powers that were locked in a way for such a long time. And with that awakening came the power of me and who I am today, the healer, the mother, the medicine woman. It came because at that point I wasn't ready to accept my gifts. So when I first stepped into my awakening, I shunned my gifts away. And then everything came back, like the anxiety, the fear, and all of that, because I was not living in my truth still. And I was half foot in, half foot out, because being in LA, I couldn't fully get into that zone because there were so many distractions. And so I started having really powerful visions one day of this center of light that I was going to build on an island somewhere. And so 7 years ago, we decided to just take the leap and go find. My husband said, okay, this is your dream. Why don't I take you on a trip and why don't we go find that island and build it? Like, that's the kind of love and trust that he had for my dreams. And I was seeing this gigantic pyramid in the middle of an island somewhere that would be a center of light where people could come from all over the world to heal themselves. So we set off and we went all around Europe and we found a little island called Ibiza. And I have never been more in love in my whole life. And I knew that this place was my home. It was like you in England, like those are your people. That is your home. This is your soil. You've been there before. That was my place. And we just looked at each other. And for most people, it's funny because people think of Ibiza as the party place, but just like anywhere else in the world, there's another whole side of it. And it's the third most magnetic point in the world, next to the Bermuda Triangle and the North Pole. So Esvedra in Ibiza is a very powerful place. And so we looked at each other and we were sober. We went to the island sober, and most people will go there to party. And we were like, this is home. This is it. We flew back to Los Angeles, packed up our entire home, which you came to I think it was my welcoming party to that 4-story dope little place in Atwater. And we packed up all our stuff, put it in storage and said, fuck it, let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's go and be who we want to be in an area and a place that is just vibrating at the highest frequency for us to really go deeper. And so that was the story of leaving Los Angeles. We packed it all up and we landed in Ibiza, and we pursued the healing arts to the fullest.
Wow. I mean, it's so... I don't think I've heard snippets of your story, but I haven't heard like the consistent brushstroke of the arc. And I didn't know about your back.
Yeah. The reason for my awakening was because of my accident. I didn't know that healing existed. I would have been another statistic. I was so asleep until I realized the power that I have over, mind over matter. So, yeah.
I mean, and you didn't have any symptoms come back after that experience?
Nothing. Zero. The only time, I had symptoms come back had nothing to do with my accident or pain. I was diagnosed with chronic anxiety and panic attacks, and I just had fear because I was receiving messages from the other world, and because I started to see, color. I was starting to see people's auras. I mean, we're talking about somebody who didn't even believe in. I didn't even know what meditation was, right? And then I'm all of a sudden can see color through people's bodies in order to help them and say, hey, you got a brown ankle, maybe you need to do some, some work there. Like to the point where we would, back then when we were asleep and fishing on camping trips, I could see where the fish were in the water and tell Alexander how to get our food for the night. So I was so tripping out on my own power that I got such bad, chronic anxiety. And then of course I got put back on, Zoloft and Xanax and all that other shit that doesn't, that suppresses that. And then when I decided to realize and accept my gifts as a whole and not do the wishy-washy 1 foot in, 1 foot out, everything changed and I didn't have anything, no more symptoms since that day. Nothing. I've recorrected my entire body from asthma, chronic asthma to allergies to everything. I used to have everything. If you could have a woman that just had every symptom in the book given to her, I had it all. And now I have nothing.
Wow, it's remarkable. It's also extremely empowering to hear your journey and your experience. And
thank you.
I'm curious because you talked about specifically in your culture and your upbringing, this level of healing, or even in this conversation around this healing, is frowned upon, is placed labeled, it's, it could be witchcraft or, however it wants to be seen based off of religious programming and all of that sort of stuff.
Yes.
I'm curious if you could describe the bridge that you walked over from that culture to fully claiming these gifts to the point where you now present yourself as a medicine woman and birthing, a center that people will come from all over the world to come and visit. So there's that piece, because a lot of people that are listening to this most likely have got their own unique gift that come through them, and yet there's this narrative of fear, a little bit about what you were talking about, how not fully claiming it, then it creates more anxiety and that pent up energy because it needs to go somewhere, and if it doesn't have an outlet, then it kind of just rots from within, from inside out. So I'm curious about what that looked like for you from feeling that piece and then actually claiming it in a public way that this is just who you be now.
The the most important thing that we need to understand is that the prerequisite to purpose is healing. You cannot create conscious solutions from an unconscious place. And the people that are doing that currently have not fully healed themselves. So you have a bunch of teachers or healers or people running around with cut open wounds trying to heal and, help other people when they're not fully healed. And so it is a very, very big and powerful decision that you have to make. If you are coming into this world and you are awakening, you have to be a full fuck yes, I'm all in. You cannot have one foot in, one foot out. You cannot do what the program, it pulls you back in. The system tries to pull you back in, and that was a huge part of why I moved away from the city, because there's always something there that it was a distraction, and I wasn't fully strong enough to be able to be in a place like that yet without having, issues. So for me, what I had to do was I had to relinquish it all. I had to not be the Shayoon that everybody knew and expected from, the Shayoon that who my parents, expected me to be when I went to visit. I had to be the Shayoon who came here to do the work. And so for me, that looked like, it started with my relationship. Like, I cannot stand for any person, religion, sect, or culture that has a problem with the race of my partner, that has a problem with the religion of my partner, that has a problem, period. So that was the first thing for me. And as soon as I decided that publicly, I felt so empowered that it got to the point where my love overcame everything, and the way that my parents saw it, the way that my culture saw it, the way that my people saw it, there's no denying it. And so if you're living fully in your truth, no one or anything can stop you, and that is the truth. And if you do not fully claim what it is that you want or that you are here for, then you will flounder. And so first and foremost, I had to make it very clear, and I had to be okay with getting, I had to be okay with getting cut off from my parents. I had to be okay with getting spoken bad about in my culture by all my people. I mean, you have to be okay with what's going to come. And so when I let go of that part, actually, was when I felt the most free. It's like cutting the cords with your own self, because all of that I had built up was actually within me. I had built that up. My parents actually never built that up. I had built that up from watching and experiencing other people be horrible people to their children, and to, not allowing, like in my culture, it's so sad, and it doesn't have anything to do with the religion, because the religion is actually beautiful. It's the culture and the traditions that fucked everything else up. Like, so I had to be okay with knowing that I'm going to make my own traditions and make the other ones obsolete, because why would I want to be a part of something that is not fully accepting? And so when I switched that mode, that's when everything changed. And so it became really clear to me then, because I did the experiments. I was experiencing one foot in, one foot out. I was trying to be, the best fashion stylist and designer, while also, my side gig was healing, whereas I needed to switch that and understand that my purpose here is to help heal other people. I have gifts that are given to me by God. I cannot mess this opportunity up. I can't half-ass this opportunity. And so when I decided to take my full power back from everything and everyone that said I couldn't do it, from everyone that was like, you're weird, from everyone that didn't believe me, from everyone that didn't understand how vast spirit is, it didn't matter. I just had to do it. And when I did it, everything came to me, everything manifested, I stepped right into my power. And that was what it was, is that you have to fully be who it is that you came here to be. And if you don't, then it won't work. So you have to just be all in, you know? Did I go off on the wrong? I feel like hopefully that answered your question.
I love it when you go off. Please go off, far, and then come back with the golden nuggets for all of us to be able to absorb and bask in your wisdom. So you're talking about aligning with your truest essence, your truest purpose. Essentially, sort of like if we were to have a contract at the beginning of this life, and it's like, all right, sign on the dotted line that you agree that you're going to remember that this is what you're here to bring, and once you do, then you're going to be fully supported. It's sort of like an energetics around that. So there was a conversation that happened the other day, and I'm curious about what your perspective on it is. Two people were having a conversation. One of them says that the universe is responsive. The other person said that the universe is benevolent. And the breakdown of that is that we operate, person was saying that we operate in a responsive universe, meaning that it's always constantly responding to us and the frequency and what we're emanating. The other person was saying, yes, and it's benevolent, meaning that it's always going to place in your lap things that are supporting you to evolve to the greatest good. So it's essentially always pulling us in an upward motion, even though in the moment we can't understand it. So essentially the responsive piece is that it's just responding to us, and benevolent means it's sort of pulling us up. How would you respond to that question of being responsive or benevolent, and based off of your story as well, with everything that happened with your spine?
I fully believe in both. I'm also a very big, firm believer in when you switch from your mentality that life is happening for you, not to you, there's only one way, and it's up. You can only be pulled into the direction of which you want to go. Nobody wants to go down. Do you want to go down? No. Everybody wants to keep pulling up. Yeah. Well, it depends, right?
It depends, right? I mean, if there's some certain places that down is pretty fun, but like, but in this context, definitely want to be going up.
Yes, you want to be going up. And when you switch that, everything does fall into your lap. Everything is on an upward motion. Everything, even if I could tell you this, because some people always ask this question as well, is that if success, what does success look like? Because that's a big part of the vibration too, right? And success to me isn't the amount of money that you have in the bank. It is about how you are making your life bountiful, and in the ways of which you can do that don't have anything to do with money. If I was still sat here with zero in my bank account and still as happy as I am today because of what I'm doing, that is successful. That is success to me. And so when I chose this route, and when I chose to understand that, yes, the universe will put everything into your lap, even if in that moment you don't feel like it's an upward situation, it is, because when you do sign on that dotted line and you work for God and you work for spirit, there is going to be so many tests. And in the way in which you choose to go about them is the way in which you continue to get your points, so to say. And so you keep leveling up, because nothing can touch you, because you are light, because everything is energy. And so when you realize, and when you re-realize who you are, and that you are made of the light, and that the light is the way, and the way is the light, and what's not of the light is in the way, then everything is just constantly shining.
Wow. So, it's such a beautiful, refreshing perspective. I'm also just thinking on behalf of the fact that you are a new mother, and well, I mean, you've been a mother for a few years, but you now are a mother of two. When I first met you, and you weren't a mother yet. You had a fur baby, but no actual babies. And with this awakening process, and with this level of mindfulness around a completely new narrative, as opposed to everything that for the majority of us were told when we were born, now to be in the position where you feel what you feel, you know what you know, how have you shifted your parenting techniques based off of how you were raised to how you are choosing now to raise your children?
Great question. I love this question. I was raised very Well, first of all, religion is a really interesting place for a child, especially when you have different sects of one religion. So, for instance, I grew up Muslim. My dad was Sunni. My mom was Shia. So it was like Romeo and Juliet. One side's, really different than the other. And so I got to actually, the great part about what that brought was I got to understand why there was segregation in my religion at that point. And then that to me just showed the great divide then. It's like you can have one huge giant religion, which is almost taking over the world, but then there's one person that says something that somebody doesn't agree with, and now you have all of these different sects. So I got to see the reasoning behind people's hate. I got to see the reasoning behind people's just judgment. And from a very early age, I would have to go to two different Sunday schools, one for the Shias, one for the Sunnis. And it was exhausting, but it also made me learn so much about it. Instilled in me why I never want to do that to my child, why I would never put my child amongst people who have such different opinions that don't have anything that are grounding and root to what life of earth and Pachamama really is. So you have all these beautiful teachings of religions, and it's a he say she say telephone game, right? But what about if we took that all away and we didn't even mention that there was religion? So for my child, I wanted him to be my little experiment of a completely clean mindset. So he doesn't even understand that he knows that there's different religions, yes, but he doesn't understand what it's like to have to live or be taught those. So no teachings of that. His religion is earth and love. And so when Aya is my firstborn, who actually came to me in an ayahuasca ceremony telling me he was going to come. And then I got pregnant a week after that ceremony. I spoke to him before he came. And because I spoke to him before he came, I was really deep in this beautiful ceremony in Ibiza. And that's why his name is Aya, actually, because he's a miracle from the root of that medicine. And he spoke to me like he was my teacher. He was my father that was coming, right? And he said to me, Mama, I'm coming. And I open my eyes, I look around. Of course, it's just me and the shaman and Alexander. And I closed my eyes and I went to call him something. And I said, Aya. And a week later, I was pregnant. And so I named him Aya. And he spoke to me in that time, and he told me why he was coming. And the children that are here now are coming for a very different purpose. And they're all here with a greater consciousness than I ever was when I was a kid. And I wanted to, in that moment, protect him because I felt that essence. I felt that consciousness was so different from the kids I grew up with or the way I've seen other people parent their kids. And I just became obsessed with protecting him from the system, protecting him from those religions, protecting him from what really messed me up as a kid. And so he became my love experiment, and I wanted to do everything for him that I never got to experience. So for instance, when I grew up in a very meat eating culture, like meat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I wanted to make sure that he had never tried any meat, and I wanted to see what his body would be like. So for instance, I had every allergy under the sun when I was growing up, from asthma to being allergic to eating something I would break out, and it was just the worst. And I do attribute that to poor nutrition and what it's like to be in the womb of someone who is hurting. And so I made sure that while I was pregnant, because it starts from the womb, it actually starts from our grandmother's wombs, right? That everything I did was so conscious to my best ability. So I'd already moved to Ibiza at that point. When I found out I was pregnant, there was nothing in me that had an ounce of the old Shayoon. It was like, oh, motherhood, she's supposed to do this. All of these ancestral lineages were coming to me. I was stepping into my fullest power because I knew that I was going to birth the birth of a mama is something that comes after the birth of a child. And I already knew that that was one of my main reasons for being here on earth, was to birth conscious children. Not only that, to start a movement in the womb of conscious pregnant women. And so everything I watched, everything I did, everything I said, everything I spoke, everything I ate had a really high level of consciousness, so that the baby in the womb would, benefit from that, and that he would have the understanding that a healed womb is a healed child, right? You healed the child, the adult will come. And so I made it my mission to make sure that when he was born, every way and every possible thing that I could give him was of the highest vibration. So Aya, for instance, has never had any meat. He's been plant-based. He's never had any processed food. And by processed, I mean, bad food. Of course, he's had, we make things ourselves that are processed, but no commercial processed things. He's never had any candy. He doesn't know what candy is. He doesn't know what those things are. And so when he goes into a place where there are children who are eating Oreos and drinking sodas, he comes to me and says, "Hey, Mom, what is this? And is it okay if I try it?" Because he knows that he's been taught that those things can harm him. And in his head, he's worried about being harmed. So that's why he's asking me. He's not asking me for any other reason. He knows, like, is this going to hurt my body? And so that was at the earliest stage. He was doing that at 2. He's still doing that now. And the best part about it and what comes of it is how I've noticed the greatest difference between him and other children. And it is night and day. And I'm not just saying this because he is my child. It is true. The boy has, mashallah, knock on wood, he's never been sick. Not one time has my son ever had anything. And I attribute that to my parenting, to our parenting, and to his nutrition. And I made sure that, he was eating his placenta and as well as me up until it ran out when we moved to Bali. I make sure that one time he got dengue because he got bit by a mosquito, and so he had a fever. And even then, he was drinking the medicine from the papaya leaves that make your fever go down immediately. And so I speak to my friends and family, and I'm witnessing a lot, obviously, because I'm a teacher and a healer. I do this every single day. Every single one of my friends' kids are always sick, or they're always sick. And I really encourage everybody to really take a look at what they're feeding their kids, because another thing that I've really noticed too is that the parents will be on a beautiful diet, but then they're still giving their kids stuff as treats, which to me is, you can really harm your child with just the cheat day or the treat, and same goes for your own body. And so it's hard to watch, because a lot of people take so much offense to it as well. It's really hard to teach that part, actually, because when you have the parents who are addicted still, how are they supposed to help their children or give to their children like that? And when you also have parents who don't see that that's an actual problem, then we continue the cycle of malnutrition, of obesity in our kids and in our adults.
Mm-hmm. That's a really powerful point around the word treats, and it's something that I'm breaking down myself. Reading a book from Charles Eisenstein about like the it's actually called The Transformational Power of Weight Loss, but it's more so talking about the energetics behind it, where, for example, that one small thing, a parent can be like, okay, you've been a good girl, I'm going to get you a treat now. And that treat is like, a chocolate bar that's like high fructose corn syrup. And it's like, okay, here's your treat. And so the foundation of that kid, the conscious foundation of it goes, okay, when I'm good, I get this. And so as an adult, when we're now alone or like we're going through a hard time or we've gone through a breakup or something, the mind goes because of the neural pathways that are founded in that disposition, which goes, okay, I'm gonna get a treat today because I deserve it because I've had a heartbreak. And so then actually what it's doing is it's programmed the brain from a very young age based off of culture, which is the relationship with that actually is quite opposite from a treat. To then condition us to believe that, oh, well, I went to the gym today so I can have a treat, or I ate a salad for breakfast or for lunch so I can have a treat for dinner.
Yeah, and culture. I love that you said that because in my culture too, it's like, why aren't you eating? There's like my mom will follow you with like every possible, meal, and they're heavy meals, and it's like, eat. You're not hungry? Okay, well, let me make you some more food. Like, no, it's okay to not eat. Your body does not need food like that. And so I grew up thinking I always need to be so full. And it was just full of shit, and it was just like I didn't want to do that. And so that's what I said earlier about making your own traditions and breaking those cultures and starting your own traditions is far more is just the abundance that you receive from that in health and wealth of knowledge that you get to do with like your kids, and you sit down and you speak about foods and you speak to your food. Like Aya speaks to his food and says, please go in the direction of which this nutrient will take me. He'll talk to his broccoli, literally, I'm not even joking, and he'll say, thank you for this food. And he knows where it should be, blessing his bodies, what vitamins it has. He knows what he needs, and sometimes he even says, Mama, I need energy, so maybe you could get me a coconut or some water. It's very, it becomes a lifestyle, and so he doesn't even think. When you don't present it, they're not gonna know, any better. So it's like don't even bring it to the table. Don't even show it. Don't give the treat. That's not a treat. You know, it's it's responsible for destroying our children, and it goes into their brain. It goes into their, their entire system. And so, yeah, I agree with you completely. It's like the treats for adults as well. It's like the crutches, like I'll just have, leads into other things. Oh, I've been so good, I'll just have this glass of wine. Or I've been so good, I'm going to have this like burger or whatever it is that's, your cheat. It's a crutch. And there's always something in there that's unhealed. And I think, Buddha said this, if you have discipline and if you can control what you put in your mouth, you can control anything. And it's true.
Yeah, it's really powerful. It's very eye-opening. From the perspective of your children growing up and leaving the house and, going out and hanging out with their friends or being at the friends' houses with the parents, and then they're feeding everyone, the food that they feed their kids. How do you foresee it being able to keep it to a place where he is still choosing to only eat that that is supporting his body, as opposed to sort of getting enrolled into what the other children are doing?
Yeah, totally. So just like anything else, it's by example. So like everyone knows, like that's in our circle or around us, how we eat. So like they're always, it's so funny. They're always on their best behavior. Like if we're out to dinner with like, people or friends, they're like, and I know that they're doing it because of us, but that's great because it's, it shows that we rub off on people in that way. But I know there's going to come a time where he's just going to have to try and do his own thing, and that's fine. It's okay. It's just as long as that foundation, because from ages 0 to 5 is the most important time. And if you get them, then they're set for life. And so, yeah, of course he's going to go and try new things and different things, but science shows that he'll come back to whatever he knows and makes him feel good. And so I'm not too worried about that. In fact, it's even more awesome. He was sitting with a bunch of kids and somebody had a burger, and he looked at that kid and he said, "What is that?" And the kid said, "It's a burger." And he said, "What is it made of?" And he said, "A cow." And he said, "Why do you want to eat your friends?" And he was 3.
Oh,
And
oh.
it really shook that little boy, because that little boy was like, and then I went into telling him about how animals are our friends and you really don't need to eat them in order to survive. And there's other things that you can eat. And so I have at that point, actually, he was only 2.5. I have a 2.5-year-old educating a 5-year-old on nutrition, right? And he gets so sad, like it's from his core, it's from his soul. When he sees somebody harming another animal or choosing to eat another animal, he sits with them because he genuinely wants to know why they made that decision. So you can't even say like, the people around us, the beautiful people in like the village and stuff, they live off of, fishing and eating, and he'll literally say, why do you feel that you need to kill another being in order to eat? Why don't you just go to the garden and grab your food and grow your own food? And that, when that first day that happened, and the teacher called me, and I was like, yes, that's my boy,
That's my boy.
The teachers aren't calling me for like, your kid said, did this at school. It's like, I just wanted to tell you that this is what Aya said today, and I thought it was really cool. And at that point I burst into tears, and I'm like, yes, it rubs off. Everything you say, they're listening. They're like sponges, and everything you say and do, which is why you have to be, just so clairvoyant and on it with your messaging to your kids, because that's that age.
It also, it's really powerful what you said about the foundation. And if he doesn't know, he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I've babysat for children back in the day that the mother really wants the child to be eating as clean as possible. However, the child has already been exposed to candy and fries and all of the things, so that then the child will have a fit and like throw a full tantrum because it's like, no, I don't want to eat anything but this. And then the child refuses to eat entirely. And then the mother sort of is like, okay, all right, I'll give you a little bit of this, but you can have, you can eat this if you eat 2 bites of this.
Yeah.
But it's like, so what you're saying, is straight off the bat, foundational level. And, it talks about it in the gene keys of the first 7 years is the fabric of the consciousness of the adult. So really what we're talking about here is the foundational level of cementing that and making sure that that's super solid.
Yeah. And that goes with everything from mind, body, spirit. I mean, my 3-year-old sits longer than most people in meditation. He wakes up and says, "We pray before we play." His foundation is rooted in the utmost of, first of all, with love for everything. He speaks to plants. He speaks to the earth. He looks in the sky. He says, "Thank you for everything," constantly. He's constantly speaking to his food. He is on a different vibration, completely contradictory to where I grew up. And I didn't even understand. Like, he speaks to his water. He talks to water. He talks to people about their water. Like, it's and yeah, that has to do with us. And fuck yeah, I'm proud of it, But like, please teach your children, what especially, can I just say this, please? The programming. You do not need to give your child a screen. You do not need to give your child a screen. It does not need to happen. And if you do, please choose the programming that is enhancing their knowledge, not taking away from their childhood. Because I am so over people and parents who are at dinner with their fucking phones and their kids. And it's like, you are losing every form of human connection that you have to your children when you put them on a screen so you can have a break, and then that's the drug and that's the addiction. And now we're all wondering why everybody's always on their phone. It's so sad. And I'm really passionate about it because yes, there are times for it. But most of the time you just need to go outside and be in nature. And even when you think that you need a break, don't put your child on something else and then go and do something that is not beneficial to yourself. You both go into nature, both go take a walk, you both go do, there's so many other things that you can do besides putting on some pointless show made by some pedophile at Disney. And then it creates this horrible programming. Every single show that my kids all of my family members too that grew up on Disney and whatnot, right off the bat, the parents are dead at the beginning. There's some crazy trauma. There's only one parent. There's, why? Why do you need to show them that there is the devil right at the beginning of everything? Why don't we just switch that and show them that there's only love? You don't need a kid that needs to try to be some sort of princess who's stuck in a palace, it's old. It's really, really old programming, and we have to make that choice now to do better with our kids.
There was an experience that happened with you that got you really activated in your philanthropy when it comes to child sex trafficking. I've mentioned this topic multiple times on the podcast. I've gone deep into it during one episode specifically. I'm curious, what happened for you to get supercharged on the front line around this very, very, very important narrative that is not being spoken about as much as it should?
Thank you so much for holding space for me to speak about this, because this is my biggest passion. Myself and Alexander and Aya came to Bali for a vacation for 1 week 2 years ago. We were in Ibiza, living the dream, doing our thing, moved our whole life out there, dog, family, everything. And we decided to come to Bali to take a break for a week for Aya's birthday. And everybody had always talked about Bali, and there was always this connection between Ibiza, Tulum, and Bali, and we hadn't been there yet. And so we came to Bali for Aya's second birthday, February 10th, to the day today. That's wild. And we were having an amazing time. And then we decided, Alexander had wanted to go to Canggu, which is like the city part, to do a quantum healing hypnosis session on a dear sister of ours. And so we stayed in a hotel room that night. And during that stay at night, before we went to bed, Alex was like, I'm just feeling really weird. I have anxiety. He never has anxiety. If you know my husband, he's like the opposite of anxiety. I'm having a panic attack. Something's not right. Something's not right. And I'm like, babe, everything's good, golden. Usually I'm pretty psychic. I can pick up on it too, but I really didn't feel anything. And we go to sleep. And Aya at that point was still in diapers, and I put him in one of those little folding cribs. And before we went to bed, this is God right here. Before we went to bed, the crib was underneath an AC unit, and I was like, the AC unit was by the door. And I was like, he is going to freeze if he goes to sleep there. Will you just help me move the crib to the bed? And I was like, babe, it's going to be so hard. I'm like, come on, let's just move it. We moved this crib to closer to the middle of our bed, so it was not by the door anymore. And there was only probably an inch or two in between that bed and a coffee table. And I remember thinking, because I was still breastfeeding at that point, I remember saying to myself before I went to sleep, be careful, because you'll hit your ankle if you get up with no light in the middle of the night on that area. So at about 3 a.m., I hear a screeching of that table, like moving across. Like, I just woke up and I was like, what is this furniture moving? And then I'm like, oh my God, the furniture is actually in our room. And I hear the screeching of the crib moving. So I grab my phone and I turn on my flashlight, and there is a man in my bedroom moving my child's crib as fast as he could possibly move it past that table toward the door. And in that moment, I had 4 seconds. I'm a ninja at heart, and in my head, I'm like a Shaolin monk. I'm like, okay, I'm looking at this man, he's in my head. It's already clicked. He's going to take my kid. That's what he's here for. He's not here for anything else. I'm looking at this massive lamp that I could shatter over his head, or I scream. And I don't know which one's going to be better, because is Alex going to be able to wake up in time to understand? Because if I try to go to grab the baby, I might miss because of this table in the way. So I start screaming, and I'm like telling him there's somebody in our room. It freaks the guy out, luckily, and he goes back out the way he came in, and he left through the window of the bathroom. And then I grabbed my baby. Had I not woken up, my baby would have been gone. There was about probably a 30-second. I would say there was 30 seconds that if I didn't grab that, he would have been out the door if I didn't grab my flashlight. And my entire life changed at that point. I was the most traumatized. I mean, if you could imagine the time between thinking my child was about to be completely kidnapped if I hadn't woken up in 30 seconds. And I heard everything in my head waking me up, wake up, wake up. I had spirit talking to me, wake up. I heard my angels talking to me, and I woke up. And so in that moment, in those days to follow, we also were completely robbed. That person had been inside of our room for an hour. Everything was laid out. Every card that we came on vacation with, which I'm not complaining, I don't care about the money. I have my baby, but I'm just saying how it was set up it was a total setup. So what had happened was the security at the hotel was in on it, and this person had completely had a gang of people outside waiting as well for Alexander. So long story short, when Alex went to go find this person, there was a line of transvestites and pimps outside, which only we could now know that they were part of the sex trafficking here in Bali, and they were going to take my child and sell him. So to process that is a lot. To process that took me, luckily, because of who I am and what we do, and we've created a way for people to heal themselves in a fast way. But when it happens to you, obviously, and it's your own child, you go through every feeling possible. So processing that for me was it was devastating, to say the least. So I tried to leave Bali so many times. Mama Bali would not let us leave. I tried to leave. I was like, fuck this place. I'm out. We're going. We got to leave. We couldn't leave. Then our visas expired to Spain, so we couldn't get back into Spain. Then the pandemic hits 2 days later, and the entire country goes into lockdown, and no American citizens are allowed back into Europe. So we are in a foreign country where my child almost got kidnapped, with no money, no cards, nothing, stripped completely naked to the bone, and we're forced to stay here and rebirth. So I learned in that amount of time to turn my pain into purpose, and I went full force on adding to my purpose in life to help educate everybody on how real and what the real pandemic is that our children are being trafficked, millions a day. And so I became partner at the Child Rescue Coalition, and now I am also looking into starting our own child trafficking and orphanage at the Life Force Center here in Bali. And that was the turning point. I turned my pain into purpose. I have my baby, and now I know everything more, what not to do. But, my mom said, why are you still there? Why are you in this place? And I said, Mom, unfortunately, wherever you are, it doesn't matter anymore because the statistics are so wild. We're talking millions of children a day. We're talking about 4 out of 5 people will have been sexually abused or trafficked by the time that they are teenagers. We're talking about 9 out of the 10 people who sexually abused children or are a part of child sexual abuse material, 9 out of 10 of them are in your circle. You know them. We're talking about the people that download child sexual abuse material, which is not pornography because it's not consensual, because these people are children. We're talking about a real problem here. And so what the Child Rescue Coalition does is they are an amazing force of people who have designed a program, and the program goes onto your computer and it tracks people that download child sexual abuse material, and then they go in and they find them and they prosecute them, and they find that most people that are downloading this material and trading it also have the children there in their homes. And so when they're going in to rescue these children, we make the packages for them and care packages for them and whatnot. So it's to the point where people are so disgusting and there's such a big sexual distortion that people are trading sexual material of children with their umbilical cords still attached. That's the kind of market. And to answer my mom's question, why don't you just come back home to America? Because it's triple there. And it's not because I'm in a foreign country. It's not because I'm in a third world country. It's happening everywhere, right under our noses right now, and it makes people really uncomfortable. And so my mission is to speak about it and talk about it. And, you know, you really need to know what your children are doing, where they are at all times, and who is around them. So, like, for instance, every member of my staff, from my house to my nannies to my children's teachers, have to have gone through our healing program, or we have a very, extensive and different way of understanding who they are. If there's even an ounce, a smell of that in their household, like, it's just a no. Like, I, as homeschooled, obviously now this happens. I mean, more teachers are getting arrested as the people who are responsible for hurting these children. And so we really need to not give so much faith into the system. So, like, know who your children's teachers are, know who their coaches are, know who their kids' parents are. 9 out of 10 men are downloading porn. This is really important, everyone. Pornography is sexual distortion. If you are watching porn at all, doesn't matter if you are a pedophile or not. If you are downloading porn, you are responsible for trafficking of children. It is all related. It does not matter. It's been the source that's taken away our warriors from our men, the sacred from our women, and now it's the children, and it has to stop because pornography it's directly responsible for the abuse of everyone, So yeah, that is the story.
Thank you. Like, really, it's just the main thing that's coming to me right now is my gratitude for you not only speaking about this, but utilizing I can't even imagine that position. And being a new mother and then confronting that experience, and then also again being the alchemist in the situation and turning that situation complete lead into gold, in the sense of bringing awareness to it. And this is a really important conversation that is happening, like you said, everywhere. Also, our favorite TV shows, or like Hollywood, and our favorite actresses, and all of this sort of stuff. Like, this is really behind the layers and behind the scenes of the frequency that is sort of steering the ship here. And it is, like you said, like it's in our circles that we don't even necessarily know about it. So it's not about just instilling more fear into the people, but it's about what is, so that we can actually bring this from sort of
99% of my clients who come to us for healing have been raped or sexually abused. 99%. And this is another really great piece of advice, is like, you have to listen to your children. We're used to being like, say hi to that person or give that person a hug, and they don't want to. There's a reason. Like, we have to really be super conscious about, because most people that have been abused abuse. It's just how it is, because that's all they know, right? It's like another part of the foundation. And so you can heal from it. I want everyone to know, like, you can heal from it. Even if you're an abuser, you can heal from it. None of this was anyone's fault. It's just what was taught. But it is pure evil. And so, like, just little things like understanding and speaking to your children, and knowing that there's, like, in our house, there's no secrets. Like, you cannot tell Aya, I have a secret. It's not acceptable, because there are no secrets, because that's how it starts, right? And so it's like really little things like that. And so I want to encourage everybody to really go dive deeper into, even if you don't have children, like, some of your friends could really need a helping hand, or some people at home that you would never think that, they've gone through it, have probably gone through it. And that's what the really sad part is. So there's so much you can do to educate yourself on how to help, how you can help. And it's really important. Communication is key.
It's very eye-opening. Your story is fascinating, extremely eye-opening, and bringing a deeper level of responsibility, whether a parent or not a parent, just a narrative into this narrative in this conversation. You've mentioned quite a few times about your program, the Life Force Center. A lot of your clients come to you. Would you be able to just explain a little bit more about the Life Force Center that you've created with your beloved, and what that looks like today?
Absolutely. So when all of that tragedy happened, we were forced to stay in Bali, and usually we were used to hands-on healing in person. And the pandemic hit, and we were stuck in this foreign country, and we're like, what are we going to do? Literally, what are we going to do? We can't get back home. We don't know anyone or anything here. So we downloaded from God, from Spirit, a very, very beautiful program called the Light Force Healing Technique. And it is a 4-week healing program that allows you to completely transform and recover from anything that you've been through. And the wild part, Blue, is that still to this day, it never gets old to me when I have the person, and that beautiful person who comes in at a discovery call completely just at their end and says, this is my last resort. I have this, and this, and I've tried everything else. I don't know what to do. So we've come up with a program which we've put everything together that we've learned in 10 years. And we've been doing this for a long time. This isn't just something we've picked up because of the pandemic. Like, we've both been in the health and wellness space for a really long time. And so we've put together all of our expertise into one program, which allows people to completely transform and heal themselves from anything. We have patients who had stage 5 leukemia who are completely stable. We've had IBS, we've had autoimmune disease, anxiety, depression, people that have been raped, anything, you name it, 75-year-olds to children that are in the program. And so in the first 4 weeks, we systematically remove all of the traumas and the micro traumas that they've been through in their life. And it's like a house of cards. When you remove the root, everything else falls. And so it was really, really shocking at the beginning how quickly and fast it was working. And it was working for everyone online in Zoom calls, mind you. So we really took off. We started becoming really popular for it because we're talking about disease, like deep disease that is uncurable, and things that people are sitting at the doctors for years and years, or therapists for the same thing over and over, And so it was a really beautiful thing that we created together that we were able to do online, and people can come. And then, like I said before, the prerequisite to purpose is healing. So after they've fully healed themselves within 4 weeks or less, they don't know what to do on the other side of pain. Most people don't know how to live without their pain, or what am I, who am I without my pain body? So we created another 3-week course, which is a purpose course, which fully aligns you with your mission, your vision, your purpose here on earth. And so we created that. It is so beautiful. And now we have just purchased our land in Bali, which is going to be the Light Force Center's hub. It's going to be the smaller version of the bigger vision, but we're creating essentially a city of light where people can come from all walks of life. They can come and stay. They can come and create. They can come be a part of the school. There's going to be a school for children, school of light, all of our teachings, a farm, an orphanage, a music studio underground. Just art meets fashion meets philanthropy meets spirit, you know. And so it's actually coming to fruition, and the light is strong over here in the future. And so we're working on that right now.
It is so remarkable to hear your story and to hear what you have created from the experiences of your past. And
Thank you.
I was just talking about it today on another podcast. You know, there's two options that we have when we are dealt very, very intense cards. And it's either they become a burden and we carry the weight of, and then we continue to pass it on to everyone we come into contact with and also the future generation, or we choose it to turn it into fuel and from lead to gold, and then use it for our ultimate service to be able to support others that are walking a very similar path to go through their own unique transformation so that their service can get activated. And it just takes the most courageous ones to actually be, you know what, I'm going to be the generation that this ends with. And you are definitely everything that I'm hearing about your story and everything that you're bringing to the world and all of your service and all of the awareness and the teachings that you're bringing forward is an end to so many, I mean, God knows how many generations of suffering, to actually be the one that's going to create the pattern interrupt so that we can create a new future. And whenever I have a conversation with you, it doesn't feel like such a far gone concept of heaven and earth.
Oh.
Like, it seems like, oh, heaven on earth one day, you know, but right now there's, and yes, there is still like a lot going on. But also I think that it's such an amazing piece to hold in our heart is hope, is faith, is trust that actually there are people having these conversations, and not just having these conversations, but are actually buying the land and anchoring it into 3D. You showed me the pictures of the 3D mapping of what this is going to look like. I got off that call with my jaw on the floor, and both of you were like, all right, we want you to get out here. I'm like, this is everything. This is everything that I've always seen and always prayed for as one day when I become a mother, to be surrounded by people like you that are having these conversations. And it's a cohesive way of life. It's not a belief. It's not a, oh, well, one day we'll do it like this and then I'll have a cheat day. But it's actually like a way of life that you're operating from. And then actually all of us can start cohesively weaving like that, like a shoulder fit.
Because we're in the midst of the craziest awakening, a great awakening, great reset. And the single most important thing that we could do is get sustainable. And, you know, that word's been being thrown around a lot, but we have to get sustainable. We have to reprogram, and we have to start over again. And the only way we're going to do that is to have a collective of people who are conscious, creating conscious solutions together in the new earth, you know. And so much sickness and disease and blah, 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 you know. Alexander's mom died last year from COVID here in Bali. And that was another great, you know, I mean, if I tell you the amount of bad things that have happened while being in Bali, you would be like, I cannot believe you're still here, you know? And so I love what you said is like, you have to continue to have faith. If you do not have faith, you can't survive. And your faith has to be so powerful and it has to override everything else. You have to continue to always just know that you are taken care of, and no matter what, you're here for that greater power and that greater purpose. I mean, I gave birth here again 5 months ago. I'm still postpartum. I'm in my 4th trimester. And that was my faith. That was my level of knowing even more, because at that time, COVID was going around like crazy, and the you know, all the medical professionals and the people that I would normally turn to, like midwives and doulas, to help assist in the bringing in of my child, all the spiritual masters, they all flip on you. And it's wild to experience people who you really look up to, who who can go the other direction quickly. And so it's really important to remain in your faith, remain in your beliefs. Like I could have turned and just chose depression after the kidnapping. I could have turned around and just been like, fuck this, this isn't for me. I'm not trying to, but I turned it all around into the same direction because there's only one way, and it's to help elevate the consciousness. You have to just keep going. And so like, I had no support up until the night before my water broke. I looked at my husband and I said, I do not want one other person here. Not one person is allowed in my birthing space because I am a woman and I can do this myself. I was born to birth, and we free birthed our baby in our home, just him and I in ceremony. Instead of grabbing the phone to call a doctor, I grabbed my drum and we were singing in prayer and calling in our children together, because that's how much faith I have in myself and in the work that I'm doing and in the collective consciousness, that it's like, you have to just have the faith. Iman means faith, You have to move forward. And when you believe in yourself that deeply, when you believe in yourself so deeply that nothing else can come in the way, that is just true consciousness right there. It just streams through you. Nothing else can stop you,
Your stories just get wilder and wilder as we progress through this podcast. If you've made it to this part of the podcast, you're probably going to be hanging on the edge of your seat. This woman is like, all right, no one else is going to be in the space. I'm going to birth my baby. I'm just going to get my drum out and just here I am doing it like rogue right now. Well, all of the experts are going, It's like, all right, well then by then, doors close to you and just you and your beloved Alexander in the space.
They tried to tell me to go to a hospital and put a mask on. I mean, that's the kind of world we're living in right now, So I was like,
I would say you gave a double one, babe. You just whipped them both up and
don't let your mask hit you on the way out, baby. We're not doing that.
I swear you are becoming more and more like a solid point of inspiration in my life. Just the way that you always have been, but it's just these stories just keep adding another dimension to the strength that has not been and there's not been an example of this level of strength before, and this level of trust in self, right? Like, it's so much easier to trust an establishment than it is to trust one's own intuition,
right?
Wild. That's what we're trained from birth. But you listen to the authorities.
Program is so deep, man. So deep.
I remember I was in one ceremony and I was looking at these programs and I was like, oh, they are so deep, primordial deep, with these roots that just are really hard.
There was a fucking yoga magazine that said, want to pick your child's star sign, schedule your C-section today. How far away are you willing to go from womanhood? Like, of course you take birthing away from women and turn it into a business. That's what it's going to be. It's a fucking business out there, and it's disgusting. It is disgusting, the amount you hear from what other women are telling women to do. It goes back to my accident when there was a woman telling me that I'm not going to have children. Like, where the fuck did you get that information from? Like, I'm never going to have children because my back hurts. You know what I mean? So it's so deep. And my goal and my purpose here is to just keep educating people on it comes back to being a woman. We are meant to give birth. That's what we are here for. That is what our nipples are for, is to feed our children. We're meant to birth. You do not need anyone else. Now, I'm not saying go out and free birth your babies on your own with no advice. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is birth at home. You do not need a hospital. You're not supposed to birth with your legs in stirrups on the back of your bed. You're supposed to be moving. You're supposed to be dancing. You're supposed to be screaming and calling in your children. You're not supposed to have masks on. You're not supposed to be told that you can't. 99% of the time you can. And it's fear-based with other people's bullshit, and it's just so frustrating. But you know, we're here for that. We're here to reprogram that. Okay, I'm
Well,
done.
thanks for creating. Yeah, you're creating a reference point, babe. You're, the future is deciphered by stories, right? And who tells the greatest story is those that decipher the direction that humanity moves in. And right now, the narrative is being predominantly the loudest narrative is that is not necessarily in favor of the empowerment of individuals. But
Exactly.
this is why we're here on Deja Blu
I
podcast.
know.
You heard it here
Deja
first.
Blu! What an epic day. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so grateful for you popping on here and to just sharing these pieces. And I feel, of course, with you, like we are just scratching the surface in everything that it is that you are, and the stories and the understanding and the wisdom and
I haven't even told you
witnessing.
half of it. Can you believe that?
Oh, I can actually, even though I'm down for a part 2 if you are. Like, I've been hanging on every word you've been saying, and your stories are just so fascinating to me, and super inspiring, and really also there's just a lot that you've shared today that I feel like I'm going to close this podcast out and then just sort of sit and just marinate in like, okay, and my reality is reconstructing again in 5, 4, recalibrating itself after speaking to you. And I'm just, I'm also just want to acknowledge your inhibition to just say it as it is,
Yeah, I don't fuck around. We don't have time. There's no time for anything else. Like, if you want to change and do it and get on with it. And let's all help each other collectively. You know, it's what we're here for. Use your voice, everyone. Use your voice. Open that throat chakra and allow yourself to be who you truly are. Do you remember who you truly are? You know?
Well, that's going to segue perfectly into my last question for you.
Okay.
If your microphone is plugged in to all of the media outlets all around the planet, and you have 30 seconds to deliver a message to humanity, what would you say? I'm going to put you on a spot.
Oh, man. Okay. 30 seconds start now. Okay. I'll say it again. The light is the way, and the way is the light. What is not of the light is in the way, and there is no more time for anybody to have anything in the way. And so I encourage you to just get up and do what it is that you have been wanting to do. Do what it is that you are called here to do, and just make sure whatever you do serves humanity. Otherwise, there is no point. There is no point if you choose to do something that does not help someone else.
All right. Well, now I'm going to try and figure out how to get your mic plugged into all of the media outlets. I've been asking this question with every guest on the podcast recently, and it's so beautiful to really condense your medicine, right? Like, it condenses the medicine into a 30-second boom, and ultimately, if it's not serving the whole, then it's a recalibrate the why. Because if we look out at the whole, we can see that we all got to pull our weight here to some degree, as opposed to it self-serving to whole-serving. But the beautiful thing about whole-serving is it serves self at the same time. So it is a win-win-win self.
We need that on a meme. Quote thing.
It's such an important message, and I'm so glad that you just blasted that to all of humanity.
Yeah, we have to. There's no other choice now. Like, you're whether on or you're off. And if you're off, there's no time for that. You have to get out of your own fucking way and go. Like, we got to go, you guys. There's a very limited amount of time left here to really make a difference and change. And if you're going to do it, you got to do it now. Stop fucking around, man. Stop it.
The time is now. What are you doing? Right now.
I love you, baby girl.
I love you so much. You are so, I'm just so beyond blessed
Same.
that you're my friend,
Same.
and that we get to do this life. And I'm so excited when we actually get to be able to plant some really potent seeds in the physical together, and just sort of join the train of what it is.
April, please, can you please just come? Do you want me to book your ticket for you?
Yeah. I think just an extra nudge.
I'm just gonna send it.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I'm just gonna email you your flight itinerary. We booked your flights for you. I'm like, damn, let's
I
go.
love you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you're doing on this planet and for this podcast. You are my inspiration. I love you so much.
Mutual. All right. So for all of those that are listening to this that have made it to the end of the podcast, and that want to continue to follow you, to tune in with the Light Force Center, to understand a little bit more about what you're doing, or even just following on Instagram and watching your Instagram stories of your beautiful children, and blasting videos of what's up, what's going on, my beautiful people. Her children are actually unbelievable. Like, I mean, they're as amazing as what she's described and beyond. And so how do people find you through the ethers, social media, and your website and all the things?
On Instagram, I am at Shayoon, SHAYOON_. And then if you're interested in healing and getting your life together, you can go to thelightforcecenter.com/join and mention that you heard this on Blue's podcast, and we'll give you a free membership, and you can access all the course material and the morning rituals and the meditations. So I look forward to hearing from you. And if you guys have any questions, you need any help with the sex trafficking or just in life or whatever, just send me a DM.
Beautiful.
I'm here to help, whatever you need.
So good. I mean,
Shayoon.
if I didn't know you, I'd be sliding right into those
Slide
DMs,
in
girl.
my
I'd be
DMs,
right there,
girl.
like, hey, it's me. You don't know me, but I know you. I watch the podcast. Oh, hey.
I love you, babe.
Oh, I love you so much. Thank you. Oh, so grateful, so blessed. And to all of you listening to this podcast, if you resonate with this podcast and you feel like it's super important to share, then go ahead and share it on social media platforms. So share it on your Instagram stories, put it on your different social media platforms, like Facebook, whatever. Give us a tag so that we can also repost and we can create this like cross network of cross-pollinating our audiences.
It's going to be part of your purpose to share this podcast.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Go! Shut! It's important. It's important information, and it's important stories, and it's important wisdom. So please go share. And also, if you are wanting to get in a little bit more in supporting the podcast, then don't hesitate to join the Bluebird Patreon behind the scenes. You'll get access to content that is not available online, and also a tiny little community that supports with feeding and keeping the podcast alive. So all of the information will be in the show notes. If you're watching this video on YouTube, then you'll put it in the description below. And if you are listening to this, then it is in the show notes on the audio apps. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of Deja Blu, and we will see you next week. Woo! Blessings.